Welcome, everybody. I'm R. Christian Minson here, Facebook Live Fridays, Breathwork Edition, coming to you today, speaking to you about creating emotional balance. I am the former director of Breathwork at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Now I'm in Denver, Colorado, waiting out this quarantine. I am also a former monk of 10 years of my life. What I am currently is a breathwork facilitator, senior trainer with the Transformational Breath Foundation for the last 13 years. I am a speaker, an author, internet coach, and trainer, and most importantly, your catalyst for evolution and transformation to a life of more happiness and fulfillment. So today, welcome to everybody out there. Let me just say, if you want at any time, please use the chat bar to make any comments, to agree or disagree, or ask questions. This is an interactive approach here as we talk about creating emotional balance, looking at the role that the emotions play in our lives and how to manage them most effectively and in the most healthy manner. I think something that we can all use a little bit of training in, no matter how good we are at it. And this is my take based in my years, 25 plus years on a spiritual path, 10 years on a deep monastic spiritual path, and then the last 13 years, as I said, as a holistic healer, and getting out there in the world to shape this vision and recognizing it, and of course being part human, being part of the human family, that we all have these emotions. And this is why this topic is so relevant and important, because the emotional dimension of our being is a very significant dimension, and one of many. We have a physical dimension, mental, emotional, spiritual dimensions. We could argue many more dimensions, but at least of these. And a happy, fulfilled life, from my perspective, is one that has all these dimensions in balance. If any one is out of balance, it's like having four wheels on a car, right? One wheel is out, the whole car doesn't function very well. So you get your spiritual, your mental, your emotional, and your physical, and that emotional wheel is kind of flat. The car doesn't roll so well. So it's important to keep this in balance. Out of balance emotions can wreak havoc in our lives. If you noticed, too little emotions, that's a typical guy quality if we're being stereotypical, but I see it a lot in women as well these days. Too little emotions, we're shut down. We're not accessing an important dimension of our being that helps us navigate through this roadway of life, and we'll get into how that happens. Of course, too much emotional activity and the emotions start to control you. They start to direct where you go, and it's almost like a car that's lost its brakes going down a hill. You're basically at the mercy of it until it either crashes into something or comes to some flat land. But imbalance, our emotions can really help to attune us to the more intuitive faculties of our being. And so this is really, if I like to give the analogy, when we're talking about emotions are well, let's just get into the mechanics of the emotions. And hello, anybody that's just joined on, Poppy, and welcome. Glad to see you on here. Emotions. The emotions are a source of information, a source of guidance for the way we navigate through what we call reality, or this physical existence. The mind is also one of these ways, and it seems like we put in our society, in our culture, we put a lot of emphasis on the mind, and as far as really being the tool for giving us information on how to navigate. And the emotions have seem to have gotten put in the back seat in a lot of ways. I like to use the analogy. Imagine that the mind and the emotions are like carriers of internet, right? Your internet's out there. Here you are on your computer. You want information. Uh, the mind is like that information being delivered from the internet company to your house on a DSL cable. DSL, it's a cable, metal cable that is able to process so many megabytes per second of information. Let's just say 100 megabytes of information at the higher levels. Anywhere from 25 to 100 these days, I think, is fairly standard. So the information is able to come through at that pace. This is the mind, the analytical linear mind. Now, the information that we can receive from our emotions is like that internet being connected to you by a fiber optic cable. Now, fiber optic cable is much quicker, in fact, multiple times quicker. It can be up to 100 times quicker, but let's say instead of 100 megabytes, we can actually get up to 100 gigabytes of information per second. That is a heck of a lot more information. So the emotions really have the capacity to provide us an incredible amount of information right from almost instantaneously, where the mind is very linear. It starts to analyze. This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. Okay, and then I make a conclusion. Right? A lot slower. So if we actually use the emotions in the way that I believe they're meant to serve us, we can be a lot more in tune with our environment and our circumstances. Let's just tune in. Martha Reich-Braden, hello. It's good to see you on. Autumn, good to see you on. And Jerry Holland, good. And yeah, so give my regards to Greg there, Martha, and give Jerry's regards too. Welcome. And so talking about creating emotional balance. So we're really talking about now what is, we've gotten past why this is so important. What is emotional balance? And as I was saying, emotions are really a greater source, an information source that can provide us more information a lot more quickly if we know how to use them. Now in thinking about this, there's about at least three ways that we can experience emotion. All right. Now, the first is that when we have an emotion, it is giving us information on the status of our alignment to our inner guidance or our higher self's guidance. All right. So the emotion in its pure form is saying, hey, you're in alignment with where you need to be going, or what's best for you, or you're out of alignment, or something is compromising your alignment, so it's important for you to look at. So this is the ideal way, I'd say, that emotions are experienced. Now, another way that emotions are experienced is when a desire is activated. So that means either the desire is fulfilled, and oftentimes then the emotions are exuberant and elated, or this desire is thwarted, and then emotions are agitated or aggravated often. All right, so this is in this example, let's say this is where maybe you meet somebody, you fall in love, and you get married right away, right? Because your emotions are telling you, oh, this is the person that's meant for me. This desire has been activated. And so the desire is now controlling the emotions, and the emotions are no longer giving you the signals of maybe what's how in tune you are with your higher self, but they're telling you how happy you are that this desire has been fulfilled. Or on the opposite side, you get rejected, and you feel angry or upset, and even though this person might not have been good for you at all, this desire, your emotions are now activated in the negative way. In the first example, let's just say, when you go in and they're giving you information, all of us have probably experienced this in some kind of scenario where it's really activating your intuitive sensibilities. You go into, let's say, a party, somebody's house you've never been to before. You walk in the door, the mind is assessing and say, all right, there's a keg over there in the corner, there's people talking there, there's people smoking over there. This is, and it's trying to assess to reach some kind of conclusion. Where the emotions are instantaneously goes out, comes back. I don't belong here. This place doesn't feel right to me. And so you turn around and leave. So that's the emotions acting in alignment with your higher self. Then the fall in love scenario is, and then going off and get married right away. This is the scenario where your emotions are activated by your desires. The second way. The third way that the emotions are activated, or that you experience emotions, is when a situation triggers a reaction, and you experience an emotion, but it's actually an emotion from the past. All right, so let me give you an example here. Say you're in a disagreement with your partner or somebody close to you, and that person uses words that don't really resonate with you, or they raise their voice in a way that sort of reminds you of a past relationship that you had, where that person either raised a voice or used these specific words and was very mean or demeaning to you, and so you didn't feel honored, and you have a lot of energy around that experience. So you get mad, and so now when this person in the present day scenario uses these words or kind of raises their voice, you get mad at them. You're reacting. You're acting again on the scenario of the past. All right, but let's say in this case it wasn't necessary because that wasn't that person's intent. That person maybe came from an Italian family, to be stereotypical, and they just talk at a louder volume. Like I've been with Italians before, and what sounds like an intense argument is just everyday average conversation. So people can have these different degrees. So the point here is that your emotion is triggered by something from the past. What you're experiencing in that moment is a reaction, a re-feeling of these emotions that came from the past, and once again are not fully present. So this might give you a clue as to why dealing with emotions is so tricky, because they can be this great source of information, this tap into your intuition. But if only one out of these three scenarios really does that. The other two is kind of like static in the system. They're blocking the static of either your desires, or blocking your connection to your higher self, or the static of these triggers or these reactions is blocking your pure connection to the moment and how you are experiencing and feeling what is actually happening now. So when we're talking about balancing emotions, balancing our emotional states, a big part of this is really to recognize when the emotions are helpful and when they are the static in the equation. All right, so another aspect of this is emotions can get very volatile when the mind gets involved, meaning the mind starts creating assumptions. We start feeling something, and then we feel a little bit of something, the mind starts taking it down a rabbit hole that then sort of feeds back into the emotions and it's like blowing air on a flames of a kindling fire, and all of a sudden the fire blows up, the emotions get enraged, and it's all because the mind took off. So there's an element of keeping the mind and the emotions kind of in their own camps at times. Check in, Alex Compton. Hey there, stranger, loving this live feature, making it possible to see in person. Excellent. I'm glad that you're on. Good to see you. Jerry giving me the word up. If you find a way to give any thumbs up or likes or anything like that, do it for me so I know that that feature is actually possible anymore these days. All right, so emotions in their purest sense. Again, emotions, when we are tuned in to them as information coming to tell us the status of our alignment to our higher self, are like messengers. Actually, really, in any of these categories, they're messengers. We just have to do a little bit extra deciphering if they're a desire activated emotion or if they're a triggered reaction emotion. Uh, but they're all messengers. Each emotion that we have has a message to bring, uh, which means if we don't face this emotion, then we don't get the information. We don't get the message. I use an analogy of the mail. Imagine that each emotion is like a piece of mail in your mailbox. You get one, happiness is a piece of mail from your pen pal. And anybody have pen pals these days? Does anybody even write letters these days? You get a letter from somebody you really like, and so that's the emotion of joy. You want to open that, and now you get a bill in the mail, and that's like the emotion of anger or stress or something. It's like, I don't want that. I don't want to feel that. So you're not going to open that letter. I don't want to feel that emotion. So you don't allow that emotion to express. You stuff it down. Right? It's like not opening that mail. Now, what happens if you don't open your bill, and it happens to be your electric bill, and it's saying your payment is due, and if it's not received in 2 weeks, we turn off your electricity. And so, by not receiving that message, you do not you do not get the message. You don't have the information to take the proper actions to say keep your living situation stable. And all of a sudden you find your electricity's off, and you got a Facebook Live to do in 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I put myself in a very bad situation. Why? Because you didn't receive the message. So this is the same way with any emotions we're experiencing. So we feel anger, and we don't want to express it, so we stuff it down. And we're feeling sadness or fear, we don't want to feel it, so we stuff it down. These emotions are trying to tell you something, but you're not allowing them. All right. So let me just see where I'm at here. I guess with this analogy too, if we're looking at the emotions that are desire driven, those might be more like junk mail coming through. You get this junk mail, and that can, Publishers Clearinghouse. Oh, you may have won $1 million, and then you get all excited and run off. Again, why? Because that mail is a little bit misleading. It's activated by a desire. You have this desire activating that. All right, so triggers. When we're talking about emotional triggers, if we were to use this mail analogy, now triggers come from these stored emotions. Right? As I was mentioning, we're storing our emotions. We're not letting them express, and then something comes along and creates the trigger that allows that emotion to come forward. That's like, imagine that you got a bill at one time that got in the mail. You open that bill, and it was like 10 times more. Normally your electricity is $100, and now it says you have to pay $1,000 for your electricity. And you just go ballistic. It's like, what happened here? Who used so much electricity and all that? And so you put that bill on your wall, and to remind you of that. And then every month when you get a new bill in the mail, you look at that other one, and you get really angry because you got a new bill. You open it up, and it's less than $100. You've been doing great for the last few months, and you're only using $70 worth of electricity. But because you put that one bill on your wall, you keep looking at it, you keep reminding yourself of the fact that the bill was potentially $1,000, that every time you get this bill, this old feeling comes up, this feeling of anger and frustration at that bill. When, if you looked at it and you were $25 less than you were last month, you probably would be joyous if you were to look at it, realistically in the moment. All right. So hopefully these analogies kind of help you understand how we're dealing with these emotions in terms of the information they're bringing us, and how sometimes that information is helpful and sometimes it can be somewhat misleading. So the problem is that when we stuff these emotions, as we say, unexpressed emotions never die. Sigmund Freud said this, the great psychotherapist. Unexpressed emotions never die. They just reemerge in darker and uglier ways. So it's like, you don't like broccoli, let's say, and so at the table, instead of eating your broccoli, you put it, hide it in the cabinet and you pretend like it's gone. Nobody's eating it. But then 2 months later, you find that broccoli hidden behind the box of crackers or something, and it's all moldy and growing stuff and all that. It's reemerged in a darker and uglier way. All right, so the thing is that these emotions are energy and motion, emotion, energy and motion, and if we hold them back from being expressed, they just sit there and try to be expressed until finally we find some way that they'll come out, and they'll come out with triggers. They'll come out one of three ways, basically. One of the ways they'll leak out. They'll start to, if you're holding on to so much energy and it finally leaks out in a different way, and then you start behaving in idiosyncratic ways. You ever seen anybody who's just like a little off, or maybe a lot off? Because a lot of times, because they stuffed so many feelings down, that these feelings are now trying to express, but they're warped, they're misshapen, and they come out in interesting ways. Another way is that this straw that breaks the camel's back approach. We pile on an emotion. This is really true with anger. Pile on, you have some anger, but you don't want to express it, so you push it down. Then something else makes you angry. You don't want to express it, so you push it down. Another day, pretty soon you've got all this anger energy, just like a volatile volcano, until finally somebody, does something, pokes you the wrong way. Often something innocuous, but it's the final straw, and all that anger comes out and decimates that person. It's like X-ray gaze burns them to a crisp, and they're like, oh, all I did was was tap you without warning you. What's the big deal? It wasn't that moment. It was all that pent up anger. All right, so. So the third way that we can deal with all this emotional buildup is like the pressure cooker analogy. Have a pressure cooker valve that allows some energy, the pressure to release, so it comes down to a manageable amount, and we can go about our lives in that way. So how do we really deal with this then? That's really the crux of it. How do we manage or create emotional balance in our lives, understanding that some emotions are desire driven, some emotions are triggers, and some are really the ones we're really looking for are greater informational field that helps us stay in alignment with our higher self. And so we were just talking about the buildup of emotions. This is a pretty common human condition. Before I get into that, let me just read. Hey, Tony Wilcox, great to see you on. Acupuncturist to the stars, yeah. Petra, hello. Emotions are like the vortex while crossing the river. Staying patient and aware in the vortex gives us new emotional knowledge and push us up to a higher level to reach our goals. Excellent. So we're talking about how to really manage these. And first we're talking about the stuff down emotions. All this is really the human condition. We have emotions, and in the moment we have an emotional experience, we have a choice to let those emotions flow and be played out, or to hold on to them, to hold back. And we have to do something with that energy, so we have to start locking it in the closets of our consciousness, essentially. Um, this So as this energy gets stored and starts to build, we want to have a pressure cooker valve. And being a breath worker for the last 13 years, I can tell you that I found no better function, no better tool that we are innately given than the breath to help us to work and manage through emotional states. So by working with certain techniques of breath work, a full free flowing breath pattern, I like to say, is helps us to open that valve and siphon off, let some of this emotions play out and just be experienced and let go. All right. So we're really, what I'm talking about is we need to find a way to express our emotions, express them adequately, or what's the right word I'm looking for? To express them in a non-volatile way. So partly to do this, we want to disconnect from the mind when we're in this process of allowing our emotions the freedom to express. Meaning that we don't, in that emotional state, we don't activate the mind and either run down that rabbit hole of assumptions, which I was talking about earlier, right? Or that we don't make rash decisions based on this heightened emotional state. But first, we let the emotions play out. We let them express. We use the breath to help siphon off some of them until that pressure comes down. And then what's left over is our ability to be present to the state we're in. And then the emotions that are coming up can help, again, guide us to, are we in alignment with that guidance of our higher selves? So breath work is really, to me, the key. There's ways to work with our emotions, but probably the quickest, most effective, most gentle way that I know is to work with your breath. As you're breathing in this full free-flowing breath pattern, it accesses these latent emotional energies. It allows them to come up, allows you to feel it, to breathe through it. We use what we call toning, which is vocalized sound. We use movement. That all is meant to release this energy in a productive way. It also helps you to stay, apart from acting on those emotions until you've worked that energy out. Okay, so I use the analogy of emotions are like weather patterns. If you've ever experienced rain comes in, starts to rain. It might rain for 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, right? But eventually the rain ends. The clouds go away, the sun comes out. Then the sun stays for a while. It's never been that it comes in and rains and it never stops raining. Not even in Seattle, okay, or Vancouver, right? The sun eventually comes out again. And this is the same way with our emotions. If we just allow them the space to be present and to play out, meaning let the rain be there instead of, say, holding off the rain and trying to keep it from coming in, then this weather pressure keeps building and building until you got a massive storm, right? So where we let our emotions go, and then they naturally move into a new state. We become happy, we become content, we become peaceful again. All right. And Jonathan Werberg is saying, can meditation help along with breathwork and balancing emotions? Jonathan's a good friend of mine from our Self-Realization Fellowship, which is a meditation-based path. And here's what I'm going to say. It's a little maybe controversial to some meditators. This is what I found in my own life, and I try to speak more from experience than from what has been taught to me so that I can teach to somebody else without having actually had it. But in my years of meditating, and then 10 years of intense meditating, living the spiritual life of a monk, I noticed that one thing, meditation is truly a higher level activity, meaning you know from his history of the Kriya Yoga that was brought by Paramahansa Yogananda back here to the West, that it originally was a technique reserved only for very highly advanced beings, and through the imploring of who was it, Lahiri Mahashaya to Mahavatar Babaji, he got him to acquiesce and say we could give these techniques to the masses. So my feeling is that meditation really assumes that we're starting from a place of relative emotional balance, because it doesn't address the emotional balance, the aspects of emotional balance. It wants to go beyond that. Once we're in this relatively neutral emotional zone, we can sink then deeper and deeper, or go higher into heightened states of awareness, which is what the meditation's designed to do, take us into greater and greater alignment with our higher selves. So what I experienced was, if my emotions were out of alignment, it was actually very hard to meditate. I spent a lot of the time ruminating over the emotions before I get to that place where I could balance it out. Now, you can meditate and you can stick with that, and through your one-pointed focus help essentially neutralize those emotions around you. But I feel like this is where breathwork comes in and helps. Breathwork can clear the ground of the emotional instability, so now it's relatively stable, and then you can meditate from there, and then you don't have to spend 15, 20, 30, or an hour worth of time getting in alignment to then finally be able to meditate. Hopefully that gives you an answer to that, Jonathan. Jerry, I'm a higher level human being. Excellent. And I'd say most of the people, if not all of them tuning in, are that here. So, breath work helps you move through these emotions. Helps you turn off the mind. It helps you separate the mind from the emotions, let those emotions play out. And then, as Debbie Ford said, late Debbie Ford now, the quickest way out of your head and into your heart is through your breath. And I'd say that, breath work, in a greater sense, even the meditation techniques that we practice are a form of breath work. We're working with the breath, and really the breath is the carrier of prana, or life force energy, to manipulate that energy, to bring it up and down the spine, to activate ourselves into higher states of consciousness. So it's a very basic technique, and but super powerful. If for anybody out there, I'd say if you're experiencing emotional upheaval, to allow yourself the place, remove yourself from environment, other people, other places, a place where you can be with your emotions, and breathe in this full, free flowing pattern. Meaning, I recommend to breathe through the mouth in this. Inhale, this, a nice full breath, but exhale nice and relaxed. All right, relaxed and effortless. We're really striving for the breath to be breathing you, essentially. Nice full breath, nice relaxed breath, and most importantly, connected, fluid breath. Right? This creates the dynamo of energy that sort of zaps those emotions, neutralizes those emotions like a bug zapper would zap bugs. So all right, something similar to that, a little bit faster than your normal breath. Inhaling, exhaling, again, relaxed, taking full breath, so it's not just shallow breathing, but connected, keeping it moving, and then just allowing through that emotions come up. You start to feel fearful. let yourself feel that. This is the counterintuitive part. We normally want to stuff those emotions back down. This is where you got to let the fear come up, bubble up, and then I use that term bubbling because it's like bubbles coming up from water. When they finally reach the surface, they pop and they're gone. There is no more energy in that bubble, right? So these are the emotions are coming up, they're bubbling up through the breath work, and then they're finally releasing and integrating. And you do this for as long as it takes for the emotional state to start to diminish. I've found, when you get good at it, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and I'm usually through any kind of emotion. Now, this is what I do for a living as a breathwork facilitator. I help people working formally with a technique, in a process. We take a session, and in that session, we breathe in this manner for about an hour to really go deep, take a deep dive, and do a lot of clearing of the muck at the bottom of the pond, so to speak. So if you really feel like you're stuck in your emotions, or you try this technique on your own, and you say, well, this helped me a little bit, but I really feel like there's something there I need more help with, give me a call, or message me on Facebook, go to my website breathflow.com and enter my contact form, and send me a message, and say I'm interested in understanding more about how I could work with this breath work to help me balance and manage those emotions. Because it really brings us to the conclusion here, which is, let me see, first, you teach breathing from the mouth, which I prefer, but most others say breathe through the nose. There's, let me just say, you can breathe through both, all right? There's reasons to breathe through the mouth. One is to get more oxygen. Another is to activate your lower energy centers, which I believe is where most of our traumas or our issues lie. The emotions around survival or creativity or our power are usually the things that make our foundation a little bit soft. And we can build a beautiful edifice by staying in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th chakras, and being all spiritual and light. But as soon as the winds of trials and tribulations blow on that, it topples because the foundation is very weak. So by breathing through the mouth, we're really dealing with the foundational chakras, those more material chakras that then give us, once clear, give us a strong foundation to then build on that. And at that point, I'd say once the foundation is stronger, we might consider breathing through the nose a little bit more. All right, so Danielle is saying, thank you for giving this beautiful session. It's exactly what I needed today. Beautiful, beautiful. And I have a great 5-minute YouTube for that breathing, Tammy. Yeah, so if you want that 5-minute YouTube, that's a good reason to reach out to me on my website contact form. Again, breathflow.com. Go there to contact me and say, hey, I heard about your 5-minute YouTube video for going through the 5-minute breathing. I think it's unlisted, so it's not something you can just go on my YouTube page and get. So thanks for that reminder. And basically, I want you to picture, what if you were to practice this breath work and see? Recognize that as you do this, a few things are going to happen. You're going to recognize when an emotion is driven by a desire, either a thwarted desire or a fulfilled desire. You're going to start to recognize when the emotion you have is not an emotion in the current situation, but it's a reaction, an action from the past. And you're going to start to, one, be able to release those energies so they're no longer continually replaying, and two, you start to work with understanding where the origin of those came from. What experience was unintegrated, or what experience really needs your attention, so that you can be done with that and live more in the present moment. And ultimately, then it's going to give you a new relationship to your emotions, that you start to welcome them all in, just like all the mail. You're going to read your bills as well as your love letters. You're going to um, experience love, peace, and joy, but you're also welcome in anger, fear, sadness, because you recognize that they're all helping navigate you in alignment with your higher self, with your inner guidance, and that is really the what I think is the purpose of our emotions. The value is that they are here to support us in our journey, and they can do so even more effectively than the mind or the mental capacities. All right, so if you enjoy this, please, I'd encourage you to like my page, friend me on Facebook, like my Facebook page, Inhale Life /Breathflow /R Christian Minson. Go to my YouTube page and subscribe to that. This is where the recordings lie of this. Once this is up, I'll put it on YouTube. Go there, like me on Instagram, and please share if you. That's one of the best things you could do. If this really felt like it hit you on a good level, put it out there. Say this is something that I think that you might send it to a friend, or just put it on your own page or something for the general population. That would really help to get the word out to more people, so that we can all start to live in a more balanced emotional state. And if you've ever lived with anybody, or yourself maybe, who hasn't been in a balanced emotional state, you know how volatile that can be for you and for the whole situation. And we're looking at a life, an evolving life of happiness and harmony, and growth in a positive direction. So that, namaste, until next week when I deliver you more information.